Hi, I'm Louis Cahill from Gink and Gasoline. It's another beautiful day in the Bahamas. Thought I'd take a minute and give you my top tips for catching big bonefish. When you start bone fishing, you generally catch a lot of small fish, and that's a lot of fun because even a small bonefish fights really hard, and it's hard enough to catch that you feel like you've done something when you get one. But as you do it a little longer, everybody wants to catch big fish, and the game changes a little bit when you do that. So I'm going to tell you a few fundamental things I've learned over the years that will help you catch bigger bonefish. And for this video, I'm going to assume that you're fishing with a guide and that you're not out on your own trying to find fish. Books have been written on how to find bonefish, and we don't have time for that on this video. But let's suffice it to say it will mean knowing the tides and fishing flats that are adjacent to deeper water and hopefully patch coral reefs, like oceanside flats. That's all I'll say on that subject. But as an angler on the bow, the things you need to know, first of all, the fundamentals are never more important than when you're casting to a big fish. And that means things like line management. Big fish run hard and fast, and they're unforgiving. So if your line is caught around the butt of your reel or the cleat of the boat, or you're standing on it or something like that, you're going to lose the game, right? So fundamentals are important. Having a good ready position and being able to react quickly when the fish show up, all very important. So can't stress enough the fundamentals. It's also important with a big bonefish to make the first cast count. Like any fish, big bonefish are smart, right? The bigger they are, the smarter they are. And bonefish have great hearing and they have great eyesight. They don't always spook all at once. They don't always just bolt off the flat and you don't see them anymore, but little things compound. If you have to make one cast and then another and they hear that line hit the water and pick up, they start to get a little spookier and a little spookier. So making the first cast count is really important. Your best chance of hooking that big fish is on the first cast. So get your shit together, make sure you're comfortable and know what you're doing, and go in with that first cast and make it count. That's how you catch a big fish. Some things to work on at home before you go out fishing are distance and accuracy. Now you'll catch an awful lot of bonefish with a 30-foot cast. Anyone who's been bone fishing can tell you that. But it's not very often you catch a really big fish on a short cast. And that's because the bonefish can hear the boat. They literally sense the displacement of the water of the boat coming. They don't necessarily know what it is, but they know something's not right. And they get spooky and they get lockjaw. So your best shot at a big bonefish is going to be a long cast, like a 60, 70 foot cast is going to be your best shot at catching that fish when his attitude is good and he doesn't think anything's going on. And it goes without saying that cast is also going to have to be accurate. So you're going to have to get out and practice to be able to make a long, accurate cast. Now, just getting the cast out there and making it accurate isn't the end of the story either. You also need to learn to land the fly softly, and that means loop control. You really need to be able to control the size and the energy of your loop, so when that fly lands, it lands softly and doesn't make a big splash that scares the fish off. Frequently with a bigger fish, you want to try to get the fly closer to them, and that means you've really got to have a delicate presentation. That takes a while to master. The thing that will kill it faster than anything else is dropping your rod tip on the delivery. So you really have to train yourself not to do that. When I make a presentation to a big fish, I like to put the fly beside the fish. I don't like to put the fly straight out in front of the fish where it expects the fly to come. This is my friend Coco. Come here, Coco. Coco can tell you this more than anybody. When she's out chasing a land crab, she wants to come from where the land crab's not expecting. Isn't that right? Yes, you're a good girl. By putting that fly out beside the fish, you're being a salesman. You're making that fish think it's his idea to eat that fly, and that's what you want. The other thing you have to have is a strategy when you make your presentation. A lot of times when a big fish shows up, it may be in a group of smaller fish, and we've all had the occasion where we put a fly out in front of a big fish and the little fish ran around in front of it and ate the fly before the big fish could get to it. So that means making a delicate presentation close to the fish. It may also mean putting the fly on the far side of the fish from where those smaller fish are. You also want to think about what can get you in trouble once you've hooked that fish. If there are mangroves on the flat or if there's submerged debris on the flat, you don't want your line getting tangled in that. So if you can lead the fish away from that, it's always a good idea. So for example, if there are mangroves on the fish's left side, you may want to put the fly on the right and turn him away from those mangroves so that when you set the hook, he runs away from trouble. The other thing you need to think about when the fish eats the fly, is setting the hook. Now, of course, you need a good firm strip set to set the hook on a big fish. But where most big fish get broken off is on the hook set. The angler jams the fish and holds on too tight, and when the fish jerks its head to run, bing, he's gone. So you really have to learn to set and go. Or like I say, hit it and quit it. You got to stick them, and then you got to know when to let them run and let that line slide through your fingers. It's super important. I think probably the first 5 or 6 really big fish that I hooked, I broke off on the hook set, and I learned that lesson the hard way. Now, when you do have that fish hooked up, there are a couple of things you need to think about in fish fighting. One is when that fish makes a big run, and a big fish is going to take you deep into your backing a handful of times, you need to keep that rod high and keep as much of your line out of the water as you can. Bonefish love to run out in a straight line and then make a right hand or left hand turn and drag the whole fly line sideways through the water. And that puts a ton of pressure on the fish, or on the line rather. It can break your leader, it can straighten the hook. So you have to really try to keep as much of that line out of the water as possible. That also keeps the line away from debris that's on the flats or crab hills or wood or whatever else he might hang that line on, will help you not break him off as well. When you're fighting that fish, you want to try to keep the pressure across his back. If the fish runs to the left, you take the rod to the right. If the fish runs to the right, you take the rod to the left. You want to try to keep maximum pressure on him at all times, and don't ever let him rest. You need to wear a big fish out as quickly as possible, and keeping the pressure on him all the time is a really good key. And of course, you have to use enough drag, but that's true of any bonefish, so we're not going to get too deep into that. Those are my top tips for catching big bonefish. It's helped me over the years. I learned most of them the hard way. I hope this is going to help you shorten the learning curve and get out there and get yourself a trophy bonefish. Thanks for tuning in, and stay with us at Gink and Gasoline for more tips, tricks, and how-to.